Hello and welcome to this i2 video, which introduces and demonstrates the new flexible importing capability in i2 Analyst Notebook Premium 940. This allows you to import data to an Analyst Notebook Premium chart that does not align with the schema of either your external search or, if working with an information store, your information store schema, and allows you to use custom items and property types to represent those items on the chart. What that allows the user to do is to see that or chart that unaligned data alongside information from external searches or from the information store on the same chart, and to use all of the normal premium capabilities for records within that chart. So over here we can see a chart which has two information store records, as well as a number of entities and links that have been imported from an import file that are using a custom schema that does not align with my i2 Analyze schema. Now, if we look down on the left here, we can see that they've got their own custom representations and their own custom names, as well as their own custom link types. These custom item and property types are defined when creating the import specification. So when you're using the Notebook Premium importer, not the classic one, the Notebook Premium importer, you have the ability to define new entity types that don't align with the schema. In this case, I've called a custom entity with a representation of a triangle, of a diamond, as well as new custom property types. So here I've added my own property type called phone number of a logical type text. So I can define those custom item types and property types from within that import specification. Now, once I've completed creating that import spec and I save it away, those custom item and property types are saved as part of the import specifications. And I can reuse those import specs if I create a new import specification, because I can read them from the existing specs and include them in my new one. What it should be noted here, and this is quite an important point, is that these custom item and property types cannot be defined in the chart. You can't do it from within the chart space. They can only be defined from within the import specification. When setting up the import spec, you can assign one or more custom property types to make up the label for imported unaligned items. So in this case here, for my date and time property, so my link here, my label is made up of a number of custom property types. And I can choose within those custom property types which order I want them to be, so I can reorder them. And obviously that also influences how they are ordered in the label. So the controls down in the bottom right here allow me to assign those custom property types as labels and to choose the order of those properties as they appear. In addition, custom date and time properties can also be configured to be used with the Analyst Notebook Copy to Timeline feature when setting up the import specification. So down in the bottom here, we're actually choosing which of those custom properties for that custom entity we want to use, the custom item that we want to use for the date and the time properties. In addition, in that same dialog, we can assign a time zone to individual date and time properties as well, individual custom date and time properties. I will now demonstrate flexible importing in Analyst Notebook Premium 940. So let's just go straight to the import menu, choose to import from a file, and I'm just going to import the example, one of these example files. And I'm just going to create a new specification using all the usual settings. Okay, not doing anything special, but we arrive at where we need to set up the particular entity types and property types. So it's just picked a default to start with. If I look in this list and take a look at my existing information store or connector schemas, I might decide that there's nothing appropriate in there for my particular entity. So I've got the option to create a new custom type or to use an existing. So I'm going to create a new one, and we're going to select an appropriate icon for it. So just for fun, we're going to use the cow icon. We've now got a custom entity type. I can, for example, assign the other to that already defined entity type, or I could use one from another schema. So if I look for an existing one, we can see I've already got some existing ones that I could use there. Okay, so I could either use this blue triangle or the purple diamond, but in actual fact what I'd rather do is use the one I've already got. Okay, and we can assign some properties to that. So once again, I may not have any properties that suit my requirements, so in this case I'm going to create a new custom property type, and it's just going to be a text string, and we're going to put something in to describe it. Okay, and whether we want to include that in the label. Okay, and we're then just going to drag per the normal pattern. Oops, I think I got that one wrong. Not that it really matters. And we'll do the same for this one. Okay, so we've now got a custom entity type with a custom property type. And we can do the same thing with our link as well. Once again, if I look in this list and don't see anything I think is appropriate, I'm going to create a new custom type. Just make something up, and we can choose whether that new link type is either represented as single, directed, or multiple. Just set it up as multiple. Okay, and in this case we're just going to take the direction manually, and we can then add fields to that as well. So if we then need a new custom property, let's just call it date. I don't think this chart's going to make particularly much sense, but at least we'll understand it. And we're going to call this a date and time property, and in this case it's going to be just a date. And we can choose to include that in the label. Okay, we might then want another custom property type. Again, this one's just going to be the time. Going to choose to include that in the label as well, and then even more silly, we should put in just a provider as a new type, just is text. Click OK, and we're going to just populate these with some information. Now, as you can see on our chart here, we've got a label of date and time. I could also choose to add this new field as well. So down in this bottom right section here, we've got the option to include in label. Okay, and that's added. And we can also reorder those. So I'm going to bring that up. And as you can see, it's obviously reordering the label, but it's also reordering how they're displayed in the record inspector. So we've got that set up now. So we've now got our import specification. We can move on to the date and time section. Now, because these are custom date and time properties, I may wish to use them as controlling so that they are used as part of the timeline chart feature. So in this case, cow association is the correct item. I can choose which properties to represent the date and the time. So it's done that for me. Click next. I can choose whether to match links or not. This is all just standard capabilities. Moving on. So I've now set up my specification. Save it away as usual. We can then just run our import. So I've now got my nice, rather silly chart. But if I was to double click on that, that's now actually going to open in the record inspector. And you can see that I've got my properties and will apply for the links. And as you can see, the order that they're presented is based on that import specification. Key thing to remember here is that the custom property types and custom item types can only be defined as part of that import specification, and that they are saved as part of that import specification. Obviously, if I then do a quick search over my information store and bring back some records of interest, let's filter it down to vehicles and just grab a couple of those. There we go. Yeah. So now we've got 2 items on the chart here. So I can work with these records at the same time as I can work with these, because they're all of the same structure. But obviously these are using some property types and some item types that are not included in my schema. Of course, you get the notation that this is unaligned. This indicates that I can't upload it to the information store. Okay, so that's the flexible importing in